Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Solidarity Gathering over Zoom. Earlier today, I saw a clip of Naftali Bennett, the previous Prime Minister of Israel, being interviewed on Sky News. And the interviewer asked him a question about the power that was being cut off to Gaza. And Naftali Bennett's response was, he essentially just screamed at the interviewer, and he said, "What is wrong with you?" He just said, "What on earth is wrong with you? How could you possibly say such a thing? How could you possibly make the comparisons? How could you make the moral equivalencies?" The rage that he was feeling is the same rage and outrage and frustration that I think each and every one of us are feeling right now. The pain, the hurts. There's no words. Right? There's no words to describe what's going on what's going on right now. Throughout Jewish history, when we have felt that we were in a similar situation where we have no words, we have always turned to the words of Tehillim. So we're going to begin tonight reciting 3 Psalms of Tehillim, and I would like if everyone could unmute themselves, and we will all recite it together. No one leading, no one following, all together reciting Tehillim. I don't know how it's going to sound, but we should be saying the Tehillim together. Hopefully it'll sound the way it's supposed to, and it should go from our mouths right to God's ears and have the effect, of course, that we certainly need it to. But we're going to begin with Psalm 121. A song of ascent. I lift my eyes from where will my help come? My help will come from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot falter. Guardian of not the guardian of Israel needs mercy. The Lord is your guardian. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor by night. The Lord will guard you from all evil. He will guard your soul. The Lord will guard your going and coming from now and for all time. Now, Psalm 122. A song of ascent by David. I rejoiced when they said to me, "Let us go to the house of the Lord." Our feet standing within your gates, Jerusalem that is built like a city. All Israel is united. For there the tribes of God is enjoined upon Israel. Offer praise to the name of the Lord. For there stood justice, the throne to the house of David. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you have peace. Let there be peace in the wall. For the sake of my brethren and friends, I ask that there be peace in you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I seek you. And finally, Psalm 91. Who dwells in the shelter of the Most High, who abides in the shadow of the Omnipotent. I say of the Lord, who is my refuge and my stronghold, my God in whom I trust, that he will save you from the ensnaring trap, from the destructive pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions, and you will find refuge. His truth is a shield and an armor. You will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day, the pestilence that prowls in the darkness, nor the destruction that ravishes at noon. 1,000 may fall at your left side, and 10,000 at your right, but it shall not reach you. You need only look with your eyes, and you will see the retribution of the wicked. Because you have said, the Lord is my shelter. You have made the Most High your haven. No evil will befall you, no plague will come near your tent, for he will instruct his angels on your behalf to guard you in all your ways. They will carry you in their hands, lest you injure your foot upon a rock. You will tread upon the lion and the viper. You will trample upon the young lion and the serpent. Because he desires me, I will fortify him. For he knows my name. When he calls on me, I will answer. I am with him in distress. I will deliver him and honor him. I will satiate him with long life and show my deliverance. So we're about to show a film. The reason why I want to show this film is because I feel that today you're not coming. We are, and if everyone is able to unmute themselves from now until after the film, then you can unmute yourself when we talk about it. We are sorely lacking leadership in the Jewish community. There isn't that singular voice that we know that we can turn to, that speaks for us, that speaks to us, that inspires us and lifts us up in these most difficult and challenging times. I'm not saying that there aren't good voices and important voices, but there are just so many, and each person in their own corner. And I feel the loss of not having the Rebbe here with us today, to be able to state clearly a Torah perspective, a moral perspective, to give instruction and guidance into how to behave at a time like this. However, in 1973, war broke out on Yom Kippur in a somewhat similar circumstance to today. And thankfully, we have the recordings of the Rebbe's advice, the Rebbe's instructions, the Rebbe's teachings at that time. And I think that it can be incredibly valuable to watch it, to learn from it, and to try to apply it for at least what we could do in today's circumstances. So the video is 10 minutes and 43 seconds. We'll watch it, and then we'll have the opportunity to discuss it together and see in what ways we could attempt to implement it in our lives and what benefit it could bring to our brothers and sisters who are suffering right now in the land of Israel. So without further delay.
Und dort sagt der Spotik, der einzige Weg, verhalten ist eben mit Nacken, ist das nicht die eben in die Gänge.
לפני מלחמת יום כיפור, כאשר חודשיים לפני המלחמה הייתה הוראה מהרבים שכולם נשים, נשים וטף, כולל תינוקות בעריסה, יבואו לכותל המערבי, לתפילה ולצדקה.
There was a whole campaign. The Rebbe was asking people to go to youth camps and get children to say Tillim, to do things, and they had large parades at the Koisel.
We started to make public rallies. The children who are pure, have not sinned yet, have the power to smite the enemy.
והרבי שוב פעם ביקש וחזר, וזה כבר היה שבועיים לפני יום כיפור. לא ידענו שבאותם הרגעים, באותם השעות ובאותם ימים, יושבים שונאי ישראל, מנהיגי מדינות ערב מסביבנו, ומתכננים, היה לא תהיה, להשמיד את מדינת ישראל.
On the Yom Kippur War, Chief Rabbi Yakovovitz was visiting Ilford, and he stayed with us in our home for the Shabbos. So I said to him, well, the Rebbe doesn't think it's so quiet in Eretz Yisrael at the moment. He's been twirling a lot about going out and going with children and things.
Ich kann zugleich mal liegen, verlieren sein und erfahrbar Mitzvah. Wenn wir sagen, die Lessons werden Juchert, werden die, sollen sie sagen, dass sie zusammen an liegen und wir stammen in der Gdeilim, sie helfen.
Rabbi Yakovovitz said, well, the Rebbe's wrong. I was speaking to the Chief Rabbi of Israel recently, and he said to me, it's quieter on the Suez Canal than it is on the French Riviera.
דובר צה"ל מודיע כי החל משעה 2 אחרי הצהריים היום, תוקפים הכוחות המצריים והסוריים בסיני וברמת הגולן, באוויר וביבשה.
The Israeli forces are outnumbered by 12 to 1.
Rashi bringt darauf, die Jerusalem Liebe und die Jodemanibo, Es hat gesehen, der Regen bei der Geber im ganzen Sommer ist gerät, wenn mit die Hilden die Jenke mit Saka ist. Da haben wir sehen, wo wir snacken, doch wir reden nicht gewählt verstandig. Was hat das mir gestuft? Was hat das dann noch alles gewesen, am Tag oben, dem da haben wir sehen, wo wir snacken.
המלחמה באה בהפתעה גמורה, כמו שהיא הייתה לצבא בארץ. איך פתאום הצליחו גם המצרים לעבור את התעלה שחשבו שלעולם לא יעברו אותה, וגם הסורים, איך הם הצליחו בנחיתות שלהם לכבוש כמעט את כל רמת הגולן מידינו. ההרגשה הייתה נוראה וייאוש כמעט, כאילו כל מלכות ישראל, מדינת ישראל מתמוטטת.
Durch jeden darf ich doch oben als Gott, aber ich hasse da an Ort, wo jeden schlagen sagt. Was ist das Ahini von Aisvadus? Ist auch in die Tag von Yom Kippur. In dem ganzen Cheder, in der Tor der Amiras von Tachnon, der Nefilas Apayim, וכו'. Ist das Simen am Bete, ist Azad, darf ich durch Schliles Tachnon, was das ist der Chassimen von Ahini Shosim.
This was so revolutionary because everybody was very despondent. Shabbat wants you to proclaim public fast. This is what it says it should know. Even if it's a Shabbos, even if it's a Yom Kippur. But the Rebbe demanded Simcha.
Und dort ist der Chechet verbunden mit Teres Abal Shemte, aber Yitzilcha, wie Yit Pitzach Lemato, ist hat in der Rebbe steht, tut das der Tug mit Yatzeh. Ist Beweis von ihm Shal Chedro, hat Beweis von dem Chedro Milnail. Ist doch verstanden, das, was mir kann Ares helfen, die Yom im Evo, kommen das Lufton und in der Leben von Simcha, was Simcha beidet geben.
In the north, the Israeli forces moving to counterattack. The Syrian forces are driven out. The Israeli forces continue to break into the area of Syria and create the new Israeli advance on the road to Damascus. In the south, the Israeli forces penetrate across the canal into Egypt. The army now stands 50 miles from Cairo.
It was a remarkable turnaround, but at a cost. Casualties had been heavy.
Was die Politiker und die, was einen das hier gewähren, gefallen von Gold, haben nicht zugelassen. Aber es soll annehmen, die Eid und der Rob, Bruder von Menschen Zoff, und soll machen nach Gius und den Zoff, weil das angeschlagen ist, was nie gekommen, der Dämon kommt.
The rabbi knew every detail during Yom Kippur War. I was there and he talked about all what happened, why the Yom Kippur stuff. Because that they recruit the Miluim twice, and the third time they didn't believe it would be a war.
Wo seine Gewände Mugilei, was haben das angetan, aber sie alte Tore Bäume, mit Torni, Torreizen, Geniti. Die Dele muss man sich einstellen in Sakone und nicht machen Kintios und nicht machen Flachazile in Jonim, was von ingetatscht werden, dass sie nicht hat Gone, sondern hat Kafar, was hat nur gebracht nach Gone mit Zlan. Hoyelisie, Hunderte Vergones, diese von den Zuim, wo der Almonis und die Seinen gehen nicht darin, in the Gassen in Erzakid.
It was a decision of government not to strike first, even though we were sure that they will do that. In order to have that particular, whatever you call it, advantage at the village.
After the Yom Kippur War, I wrote to the Rebbe and I said to him that the miracle was far more obvious in the 6-Day War than it was in the Yom Kippur War. And I had a letter back from the Rebbe in which he said the miracle of the Yom Kippur War was far greater because had the Egyptians, on the one hand, those coming in from the north, not stopped to regroup, we would now have the breathing space. He said, Baruch Hashem, I've said this personally, or what was in the letter, that the Eibishter is the commander-in-chief of all the forces.
Wo noch du a Zovo, in wer steht bereich von dem Zovo steht Alekei Atzroi. Israel hat das gesehen auf dem zweiten Tag noch Kippe. Gleich a Rede gekommen von jedem HaKodesh, hat nach Kugiton, als Alekei Atzroi, wie der Rom mit dem Zovischen Knege. Und hat dann aufgehalten, 3, 4, 5 Kilometer von der Tiolo, und er verhalten auf Chernow, und hat gesagt, weiter darf's nicht gehen.
They surprised us because we were not ready for the fight, but when they found it's too hard to fight, then they leave the tanks and run away. We know for 6 days the same thing happened.
Der Rebester will aber, soll nicht sein an Hoga Nistis bechol je wa je, nur sie soll sein an Hoga Tivis und an soll sein an Ginyen, das nicht in der Chorogie. Und der Pschate der Vista, Chabole Hoga, darf dann ab ihrer Tief, Idee und Ruhe soll rauskommen, der Inge Legionen Revolution, Schäme ist so.
He had logic in everything that he said. He didn't talk like a rabbi. He talked as a general.
All right. So that was the video, and I would like to talk about this for a few minutes, but and I would invite people to speak, but I just want to make an important, limitation to the conversation, that I want people to address directly the ideas that the Rebbe spoke about and try to apply it to today's circumstance. That means it's not an invitation for a political speech or a military speech. The question that we're focusing on very specifically are the words, the ideas that the Rebbe said, and how we can apply them today. So if anyone would like to begin, I don't know how to raise, you know how to raise your hand on this thing? We don't want to do a free-for-all here. I can't see if anyone is raising their hand. So I will start talking, I guess, if not. So there's a bunch of different things that the Rebbe said, that the Rebbe talked about in the video. So one of the things that makes a huge impact is that there is absolutely something that we can do, that we have the ability to do. What we do matters. What we do counts. And specifically in the video that we showed tonight, the Rebbe was addressing children. That the power, the strength of children are not just inconsequential. Children are so critical, they matter so much, and not just because they're our future, but through their prayers, that has the ability to pierce and penetrate the heavens. Again, this was based on the biblical verse that the Rebbe quoted. So including the children as part of the response is critical and vital. We are empowering children, right? Which is a very beautiful idea. The second element, the Rebbe talked about joy. It's critical that we are going with joy. And it struck me because I probably saw 5 different videos of IDF soldiers preparing to go into battle this week, different videos, different groups, and they had a chant, right? The chant, one person was standing on top and chanting Ivdu, and everyone responded Ivdu, right? Es Hashem b'simcha, which means we have to serve God with joy. You have these soldiers, they're about to go out into the most real battle you can possibly imagine. What is their battle cry? What was their chant? We have to serve God with joy. And then they sat and they danced together. If there was Hashem b'simcha, if there was that was their battle cry. Because simcha pairs together, joy has the ability, the power to knock down, break down all barriers. And it sometimes can be that we're so frustrated and we're so depressed and you just want to cry, you just want to scream. Doesn't help, doesn't accomplish. Do we want to do something to help? We want to do something to accomplish? Joy. And not joy as in, let's have fun and watch football. That's not what we're talking about. Joy in something that's purposeful and meaningful, in serving God and doing a mitzvah and reaching out to a friend. That's the most powerful way that we can inject joy. The Rebbe commented about this very dangerous attitude that sometimes politicians have. We don't want to provoke the nations of the world. We don't want the UN to make any comments. We don't want, college campuses to make any comments. Right? You know how dangerous that is? The Rebbe said to the politicians, tell it to the widows and the orphans that are walking the streets of Israel today. That we have to do, the country of Israel needs to do what they need to do according to the rules of nature, whatever they need to do as a military in order to prevent that this does not happen again. That's what has to be done. Any other considerations, tell it to the widows and the orphans, right? That is simply unacceptable. And then, of course, the idea that at the end of the day, our faith and trust is in God. He is the commander-in-chief of all and any army. And therefore, there's a physical element. The IDF has to do what it has to do. The politicians have to get out of the way so they can do what they need to do. But at the same time, we know that God runs the world. And if God runs the world, mitzvahs are our bullets, right? Torah study, that is our ammunition. And we absolutely, in the real world, have the ability to contribute and to make a difference in a real way. So these are some of the ideas that I took out of these clips. I know the Rebbe said a lot more when it came to these issues, but in this brief clip, those are some of the things that were meaningful to me. If anyone has something they would like to share, if you unmute yourself, I can see that you unmuted yourself, and then I will call on you, and then you can speak. I think that's a good way of going about it. Linda Berman, you are unmuted. Does that mean you would like to share something? Now they're right. Jeff Langer, you look like you're ready.
Yeah, I really appreciate you showing this video, because sometimes we get lost in the news and we get lost in the immediate emotions that we have when we see and hear what's happened to the people, to the Jews in Israel. And then we hear the response that we have to be careful about destroying Gaza, and our thoughts don't go to a good place. And I think by keeping in mind that we have to handle this in a logical manner, or maybe a not logical manner, by not letting our emotions get the best of us, but by making sure we pay attention to what we should be doing all the time. I think this was a good reminder.
Very good point, Jeff. We have emotions that are raging and pulling us in all kinds of different directions. We have to try to channel them in the most helpful and productive way that we possibly can. Very good point. Anyone else? All right, Brad, you got to unmute yourself. There you go. Hey, Brad.
I'll say something. One of the many things I took out of the video was that the Rebbe says that we shouldn't, depend on miracles. While we'll take them if they're there, we have to. It was to quote him, it was something about the natural course of things. He said, and and this is what the Israeli army is doing, and they have to do what they have to do in Gaza. But on a side note, according to the news reports, tomorrow could be an impact day around the world for terrorism on Jewish facilities, which is something everyone should sort of keep in mind.
I spoke to the chief of Bayside Police today to make sure that they are aware about it and that the shul is on their radar very strongly. I don't want to minimize this call for a day of rage or whatever people want to talk about it. I'm not particularly nervous about it in Bayside, but we definitely spoke to the police and want to make sure that we're communicating and we have, we're doing what we need to do in the natural world to protect ourselves. However, I don't think we should get too nervous, too scared. I don't think to make too big of a deal about it, but at the same time, we got to make sure that the police and the security and all those things that need to be there are there. So we're going to do that.
It's the school building, I think, is would be the main target, I would think.
It's definitely a possibility, which is why there's security there. There'll probably be extra security there as well as police.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
I would also, Rabbi,
yes, Gail, please.
I would also like to thank you very much for showing that video. It was inspiring.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for coming and participating tonight.
Thank you.
So I want to make one last comment as it relates to the Parsha, because after all, this is the 30 minutes of Torah study Parsha class. So we begin reading the Torah again with the story of Bereshis, the creation of the world, the creation of Adam and Chava, the first human beings, and of course, the downfall of humanity, the consequences of the sin of eating from the tree of good and evil, eating from the tree of knowledge, and we're dealing with these consequences today. So how are we meant to understand the story? So there's a lot to go into. It's just one brief comment that I want to make. God created the world for a purpose. In order for the world to have any purpose and meaning, there had to be good and evil, right? There had to be sin. There had to be an attraction to sin. So creating the world in a Garden of Eden atmosphere ultimately would have been useless, purposeless. It would have had no meaning just to create a paradise. So the question is, why didn't God just create a world that to begin with, good and evil are mixed together, where there already is that predisposition, this attraction to evil? Why did God create a world that was paradise and then had Adam and Chava mess it all up, and then we have to deal with the consequences? God could have just started day one, right? People are not in the Garden of Eden. The world is as the world is. And I think the answer to that question is that if God would have created the world that way, it would be unfair. We would be at a disadvantage. How on earth are we supposed to have the ability to overcome the very rules and regulations of the world that God created? It's impossible. The deck is stacked against us. However, I think because of the fact that mankind was the one who caused the sin, which caused the world to be in the state that it is today, the message is that just as we caused it to happen, we also have the ability to repair it. That everything within the world is within our power and it's within our reach as well. So whatever negativity that we may see that's in the world is a result of our own shortcomings and failings as human beings. But that means we also have the power to improve the world, to restore the world, and return the world to that state of the Garden of Eden. Which means if you see something that's messed up in the world, that means you have the power to fix it. So it should not lead to despondency and negativity and then feelings of sadness and depression. It should push and propel us to say, I can do something about it. There's nothing that is above and beyond our capacity to do. We caused the problem as human beings. As human beings, we have the ability to resolve the problem, to bring the world back to the state of the Garden of Eden, which is ultimately the coming of Mashiach. So that means anything that we have that's within our power, within our ability to do, it's our duty, our obligation, it's our responsibility, and it's within our hands. We can do it. So let's make it happen. Let's transform the world and bring about the coming of Mashiach. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming tonight. And God willing, we'll have a peaceful day tomorrow and a beautiful Shabbos together as a community. Have a good
Thank
night.
you, Rabbi.